Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Greentooth Gorge. Our first player is Dark Heretic, playing as the Plague Champion. The Plague Champion is a Chaos ranged hero, although he can get melee weapons later on. He can heal things with Mucus Discharge, he has a heal worship, and he also can repair and build turrets. This, I believe, is a Death Guard Plague Champion, which is one of the new elite schemes. His opponent is PurpleSquig. He is playing as the Eldar Farseer. Eldar Farseer is like a light melee hero with a lot of support and spellcasting abilities. She's got spells for buffing, debuffing, as well as a few for damage. I think even the spells that do damage, they're also a lot about control and some kind of disabling. So very much a disabling, debuffing, and supporting hero. So we've got a 1v1 between two players that definitely have not really been cast much at all in 1v1 games, so they're relatively new names, at least as far as casting goes. I've definitely both seen PurpleSquig around as well as played him quite a bit in 1v1, and he's pretty solid. Dark Heretic I'm not familiar with pretty much at all, actually. He's definitely sent me a few replays. I think this might be the first one that I'm actually casting. But 1v1, Chaos versus Eldar. Now, let's see, this matchup right here. Well, the common knowledge is that the Plague Champion is a rather bad 1v1 hero, that he's actually one of the worst 1v1 heroes. We'll still see how it goes. Some good things he has going for him is that with certain upgrades, he can actually be a very good counter to the Howling Banshees. Right now he's just using range damage, but more with some of his, like, if he gets the Fetid Armor or if he gets the Plague Sword, he can be a very good counter to the Howling Banshees. In his default form, he's actually a very good counter to the Dire Avengers, and we actually have double Dire Avengers, and they're actually going to get countered pretty hard by the Plague Champion himself. Chaos Space Marines also do very, very well against Dire Avengers. Dire Avengers are kind of an awkward starting unit, and they're both very, very good in some ways as well as not so good in some ways. I think some people would probably disagree with that. They would probably just say that they're just really, really good. Dire Avengers have good starting DPS. They actually have higher DPS than the Chaos Space Marines, although the Chaos Space Marines still win quite significantly over the Dire Avengers because they are a much tougher unit. And not as well as they have heavy infantry armor. So Dire Avengers are kind of awkward in that they don't really even want to engage directly in ranged combat with other ranged units, because they tend to lose most direct ranged fights in Tier 1. You definitely want them for kiting melee units, however, since they do pretty good damage. They're a little bit speedy. They have a starting speed of 5.5, and then of course you can get Fleet of Foot, which is very good for kiting. You generally want to be very, very evasive with your Dire Avengers, especially once you get Fleet of Foot, and really have them kind of not engage a lot of the times. Just whenever you... Basically, you pretty much don't want them to engage in a direct range fight with any other Tier 1 unit. Unless you either have some kind of support, like a second squad of Dire Avengers, that can just really overpower whatever squad they're up against. But then, again, a lot of times, then they'll be up against, like, double Dire Avengers will probably be up against double Shootas. And I think the double Shootas would have the edge in that fight with big Shootas, with aiming what's that. But, you know, it's all about chaos right here, so... And I think especially with heal support or a Plague Champion with a Plague Champion support, again, they don't want to fight this Plague Champion directly. Anyway, whoa, we've got double Rangers, which, if anything, is not that surprising. Double Rangers, or Rangers in general, snipers in general, are considered a major weakness of the Plague Champion. It's actually said that there's very little he can do about it. And compared to the other Chaos heroes, obviously we've got the Chaos Lord, who is very, very aggressive. He can tank a lot of that damage, he can rush forward, and he can really just kind of like overpower the Rangers, rush straight into them. The Sorcerer has a lot of other options, not quite the aggressive and overpowering options that the Chaos Lord has, but he has things like the Sigil of the Rift, as well as his own personal teleport. The Plague Champion, it's generally thought that he kind of needs to go for Raptors. Although the Grenade Launcher Heretics are kind of a decent alternative choice. They can definitely do some damage to the Rangers, but they actually have to be careful. Vanilla Heretics with no Aspiring Champion will actually take a bit of damage from even, like, they'll take area of effect damage from the Kinetic Pulse. Oh, and they really need to get away from those Howling Banshees. So Plague Champion is a great melee counter. He's actually got the Bile Spewer, and he can use that as a melee counter as well, since it actually has a passive... It has a passive speed debuff, as well as it has an active ability that's like a snare. It's called the Bilious Discharge. Anyway, now PurpleSquig has a very long tier 1, so he's dominating on map control. Dark Heretic, well, he's actually really losing out on map control, but he's about to go to tier 2. PurpleSquig actually has to wait a little bit before he can get to tier 2, so we might see a pretty fast Blood Crusher out of Dark Heretic, and that could put him back in this game. It's something that is also plays pretty well into the build that PurpleSquig has. PurpleSquig chose to get Rangers instead of Guardian Weapons teams. Now, the Guardian Weapons teams, they are less expensive. They actually, suppression also is something that the Plague Champion really struggles with. So they could be good too, and they would be better to scale into tier 2 to have to deal with vehicles. But, I mean, he got the Rangers because it's generally said that the Plague Champion can't do much about it. That being said, PurpleSquig is not really going to be ready if a Blood Crusher is going to be built, and that's exactly what Dark Heretic is doing. So PurpleSquig has a pretty significant VP lead, but Dark Heretic is fast-teching, and he's about to get he's about to get this Blood Crusher. Now PurpleSquig actually puts down a lot of power, so he's got a bigger income all around. Plus 94 power, my god. Even plus 330 requisition. So despite the army he has a lot of requisition points. And I think they're all fully matured, so he's just getting a ton of resources. He's actually really dominating in some ways, but he is very inevitably going to be forced off by this Blood Crusher. Now, the Blood Crusher right now, he can definitely kite and run away from the Blood Crusher, but just the presence of the Blood Crusher just is going to force PurpleSquig to move away, because right now there's actually really not much he can do about it. The only thing that can really damage the Blood Crusher right now are the Howling Banshees, but they don't have their Exarch, so they don't have the heavily melee spear, so their damage against the Blood Crusher is going to be very light. And the Blood Crusher will bleed the models and generally win against the Howling Banshees right now, especially if there is some worship support from the Heretics. But it's still a triple cap for PurpleSquig, so he's got 488 VPs to 295 for Dark Heretic. Dark Heretic needs to make something happen as far as map control, and I think he should really, I'm going to say he should pretty much just put a second Heretic, or at this point a third Heretic squad out on the field, almost just as map control, because he is losing handily on map control, and that's also another one of the stated weaknesses of the Plague Champion that makes him weak in 1v1. And the Plague Champion, in my opinion, is actually a pretty strong teams hero. In fact, I would say he's a very strong teams hero, but that just the way he functions, where he is a slow unit, and just, especially with a build like this, a short build with the Plague Champion. I mean, even if you're trying to go for a fast deck, a short build with the Plague Champion, you're asking to lose on map control. So in some ways, this is surprising. He's also right now asking to lose his Plague Champion. Now, he might get lucky. I'm actually surprised the Farseer did not go ahead with that. Like, I think possibly with Guide on herself, she could have actually taken out the Plague Champion right there. Anyway, Blood Crusher is bashing generators, but we're starting to see some anti-vehicle responses. We've got the Executioner Spear on the Howling Banshees, but a Blood Crusher Roar does scare them away, and he also is still holding on to the Blood Crusher Charge, which is frequently the get out of jail free card for the Blood Crusher. And he's still not using it, and once he does use it, he will even knock over the Chasing Howling Banshees. I think he should use it. Well, alright, he's getting it into some range of some Heretic worship. I don't actually think he should commit to fighting the Howling Banshees, but the Howling Banshees are going to back off anyway. Now we've got some Plague Marines out on the field, which, if anything, I feel is like a pretty curious purchase. It's almost like I think, especially Plague Marines are, in my opinion, pretty bad as a blind purchase. And they weren't exactly a blind purchase. It's pretty bad as a first purchase, a first tier 2 purchase for Chaos blindly. Unless it's if you're going to get it like as your first purchase in tier 2, it better be as like a reaction to a vehicle. But one squad of Heretics goes down for Dark Heretic, and he actually lost the melee Heretics, which is actually really, really bad. But the Howling Banshee's in a little bit of trouble. They'll get out of there alive. Plague Marines are tough, but they really don't do that much damage. Period. They do very, very low anti-infantry damage. They actually don't even do that much anti-vehicle damage. Well, they do good burst damage, but their actual anti-vehicle damage is on par with a TAC missile launcher, which is actually relatively low on the scale of anti-vehicle weapons. Things like las cannons are much, much more powerful as far as anti-vehicle weapons go. And we've got a second squad of Plague Marines. This is actually a very, very curious build to go for 2 squads of Plague Marines. I mean, I guess one thing that could work about the Plague Marines, although they do very little damage, they're also very, very tough, and they only have 3 models. So they might actually be able to tank the damage against Dire Avengers and actually kill the models on the Dire Avengers first, but to be honest, it's actually questionable. I don't even really know, and especially now that these are fully upgraded Dire Avengers, I still don't think it's a good idea to just get 2 squads of Plague Marines at a time when there are no vehicles out on the field. And I mean, certainly this is going to deter PurpleSquig from actually getting a vehicle, or at least make him very cautious about getting one. Now, one thing I also think that's really curious about what PurpleSquig is doing is that he actually really hasn't even bothered to commit to any really hard AV. So he's not even really bothering to deal with the Blood Crusher. He's really only at best deterring it with Howling Banshees as well as the Farseer. We do have a new squad of melee Heretics. I think that was a smart purchase. There is Touch of Nurgle. I think those Banshees would have been in deep shape if they had not gotten healed by the Farseer with the Spirit Stones right now. This is actually now pretty much a winning engagement for Dark Heretic. He lost a lot of models on his squad of melee Heretics. Now he's going to bash this power. He's actually doing very, very well to come back into this game with a very, very awkward, with what I personally feel is a very awkward build, but I'm also very much not a Plague Champion player. And even if it's just another Chaos hero, I feel the Plague Champion is so different from the Sorcerer that it really makes no sense to me. I have a decent Chaos Lord, but the Plague Champion, man, I can't use him. And well, I mean, it's probably not that bad. I probably can use him a little bit, but I'm not very good with him. Although part of it may just be that he's actually kind of bad. But I like the way we're seeing him used here. Like it really is an awkward build. A lot of it's centered around this Blood Crusher. The Chaos Space Marines are not really doing that much damage. The Plague Champion is kind of doing damage, and yet kind of not. I think he's more about control and tying up. He's also got the Icon of Nurgle, so actually he probably is going to be doing a bit of damage. Icon of Nurgle does give him a aura around him, which does damage. We'll just read the tooltip, which says 10 piercing damage every 1.5 seconds, although that may have actually been changed in Elite Mod. This is still the old retail tooltip. But you get the idea. It does damage in an aura around the Plague Champion, so it's definitely going to be effective against squishier infantry squads, things like Banshees or Dire Avengers, which are actually not that squishy anymore, but they are infantry squads. Blood Crusher now getting overextended. We need some Doom Blast, Touch Up Nurgle probably still on cooldown. I feel like the Blood Crusher should get out of there. We should have some worship, and another squad of Heretics goes down, unfortunately, for Dark Heretic. This is not going to be good. He's unfortunately losing this engagement, and he's going to lose the Blood Crusher this time. So he did pretty well to come back into Tier 2, and I think a lot of it was actually having the Autarch with a fusion gun, and this is one of the few times I have ever seen a fusion gun Autarch, and I think it was actually used very, very well. Because I think until he had the Autarch, he was pretty much using the Howling Banshees as well as the Farseer as a way of dealing with that Blood Crusher. And those were getting countered by the Blood Crusher itself, as well as the melee Heretics. Now, once he had that Autarch, first of all, he had just another AV unit. So it was just another source of AV, and it was now a source of ranged AV. So he was threatening that Blood Crusher at range. And even though the Blood Crusher is even though ranged AV isn't as powerful as melee AV, actually that might not be true. Well, I'll just go into my next point, which is the fact that the Blood Crusher is not that tough. So he can definitely threaten it quite a bit with this Blood Crusher, with this fusion gun Autarch, especially because the Autarch is so mobile. She's very, very fast. The DPS for this fusion gun is actually not that bad. Alright, we've got Howling Banshees going in. I would expect them, though, to get suppressed. And wow, this Chaos Shrine of Nurgle went down really, really quickly, in part because of that fusion gun Autarch. We are seeing a very well-played fusion gun Autarch. Howling Banshees are way overextended. Now, they're probably not going to die just because there actually isn't that much that can damage them anymore. But, wow, actually they took a lot of damage on retreat. But here is a Chaos Dreadnought, right now still with the autocannon. This is the Death Guard Dreadnought. So if we take a closer look at the Death Guard Dreadnought, it has a very special design, pretty disgusting, but it is, well, it is Nurgle themed. So Dark Heretic now left with a rather awkward build. He's still got this weird Plague Champion, this setup, the Bile Spewer, Fetid Armor, and the Icon of Nurgle. Definitely the combination of Unholy Stench as well as the Icon of Nurgle could definitely do some pretty good area of effect damage around the Plague Champion. But he's still keeping the Bile Spewer. At this point, he might actually want to switch to a melee weapon, because both of these second War Gears are going to require him to get very, very close. I mean, the Bile Spewer already requires you to get close, but, well, you might be better off with a melee weapon. Or not. The melee weapon would be very, very good for dealing with the Howling Banshees. Although, maybe the Bile Spewer, he would be better off with that against, like, the Dire Avengers. Now, it's weird, because Dark Heretic is still in Tier 2. He's actually really, really loaded up on Tier 2 stuff, as you would actually kind of expect from a Chaos player. Meanwhile, PurpleSquig is already in Tier 3. Part of that is the idea, he had that early map control, so he had 2 full power farms. He had that plus 94 power income that I noted. So he's well into Tier 3. He's got a Fire Prism now, and this is yet another thing that is going to be extremely tough for the Plague Champion to deal with. I mean, talked about Rangers can be tough for him, Suppression can be tough for him. The Fire Prism is also something that can be extremely, extremely tough for him to deal with, because it's such a long-range unit. Wow, we actually have a Noxious Cloud to go after these Howling Banshees. Now, we did have a heal, a Spirit Stone's heal. Unfortunately, this is definitely the end of that Dreadnought. Dreadnought getting murdered. And here are some chosen Plague Marines. And the double Rangers are still alive and still virtually uncontested. And we're seeing they're hardly being threatened. PurpleSquig actually choosing not to even reinforce missing models. And I mean, the Rangers are not going to get any extra functionality out of that second model. And I mean, if anything, he's doing pretty well to keep. They're generally so unthreatened that it's probably not going to be that hard to even just keep those 2 models alive. And I mean, the Fire Prism is really is definitely like a game-changing unit. It's a unit that can cement a lead. Sometimes when a Fire Prism comes out on the field, depending on your tech situation, you may have pretty much lost there already. But just a very powerful unit because of its extreme range, as well as the fact that it does knockback, which can really deny victory points. And the Plague Champion, Fire Prism is tough for anyone. The Plague Champion, out of all the Chaos Heroes, is the Chaos Hero who is least capable of dealing with a Fire Prism. Whoa. Oh. So here are some of those chosen Plague Marines. Exploded on death. Spawned a bunch of zombie Banshees. Meanwhile, we actually had some backcapping Chaos Space Marines. And these Chaos Space Marines, I feel they haven't done that much. They haven't killed much. They're only at level 1. And they only have an Eternal War upgrade. Anyway, Dark Heretic still pumping out Tier 2 units. And PurpleSquig doesn't have a whole lot of Tier 3 stuff. He pretty much only has the Fire Prism, partly because he's actually got so many units. He's got the Autarch. He's still got his double Rangers. We've got a new Dreadnought. Now, I don't know if continuing with the Dreadnoughts is really that great of an idea. I feel like the first Dreadnought got shut down pretty quickly, and we have a Dreadnought right here that's really has the same amount of health. Even though it's going to do more damage, I think it can still get taken down pretty easily. Oh, Autarch can actually switch to the Executioner Spear. To be honest, didn't even know that. I thought part of the disadvantage of getting that fusion gun and why people don't do it is that you can't get the spear, which is the more overall useful upgrade that goes along better with the actual role and purpose of the Autarch. Autarch is about to go down, and she does go down. Stayed in there way too long. Well, that was kind of sad. So there goes the Autarch with a freshly bought Executioner Spear right there, and now gone. Ooh, wow. Wow. Alright, one Ranger goes down, suddenly squad wipes from Dark Heretic on PurpleSquig. It almost seems like these Plague Marine missiles are actually hitting infantry. Uh-oh. Wow, this is actually really, really smart by Dark Heretic. Just pushing forward against the Fire Prism when it's in the base, takes it out really, really quickly. What a couple series of plays from Dark Heretic. He is now looking really, really strong, even though he's got no VPs whatsoever. He's got 48. And that's definitely pretty much exactly what he's struggling with at the moment. And PurpleSquig just got a double in his favor when he's got a lead of 245 to 43. Chaos Space Marine's in trouble. Are we going to see any grenades go in? I think those grenades are late. Are they? Whoa, that was actually very, very close. Actually, not that late. So, a good couple series of plays, and we actually have the Seer Council from PurpleSquig. This squad of Warlocks. Literally a squad of Warlocks, all of them with the Merciless Witchblade model. And they do, I believe, 40 DPS power melee per model. So 200 DPS as a squad. Kind of like Banshees on crack, although they don't have the War Shout. And they're even better than leveled Banshees a lot of the times. Although I wonder if the leveled Banshees might actually do more damage than the fresh squad of Seer Council. But the fresh squad of Seer Council still clearly have quite a bit more health, which I think still makes them the better squad. Anyway, Nurgle Shrine in the middle to help him hold it. I don't think he's really going to bother trying to go for the third. Well, he could actually... Well, if anything, he might have his Chaos Space Marines on capturing duty, not even reinforcing all of the models. He does have them at level 2 now. But Chaos Space Marines are really not doing that much in this game. And, I mean, at this point, it looks like he's even just going to, permanently stay in Tier 2. And now we finally have this Bright Lance, and I think the Bright Lance was even being buffed by Guide. I mean, it's got the circles. Look at that long range. That is, oh, that's not an Eldritch Storm. That is a Psychic Storm, but PurpleSquig is sitting on enough resources to do an Eldritch Storm, so he might want to try to do that, especially to break this, just what we see here, the combination. Oh, there is the Eldritch Storm. Kind of misses, and he actually... Oh, he does take out the Dreadnought, so Dark Heretic moved it out of the way at first, but didn't really move it out of the way enough. Now, I actually think that Eldritch may have been better spent right in the middle, like right on top of the shrine. Like, it would have taken out the shrine guaranteed and done a lot more damage to all of the other units right here. And possibly, I think if he had kept his actual squads away, he could have done enough damage to, like, the Plague Marines, as well as the Chosen Plague Marines right here, that he would have possibly won that engagement. Now, one thing that would also be really nice for him to do is that if he can just get sight on the Chaos Shrine of Nurgle, he can take it out with this Bright Lance right here. Bright Lance is in range of the Chaos Shrine, it just doesn't have sight at the moment. So PurpleSquig forced off again. He's kind of rebuilding his forces, and he's going to make another push at some point, but he's actually running out of time, and now the VP is starting to look pretty even, and it's been like a kind of a surprising game in some ways. With Dark Heretic, I feel like it was definitely his early game situation was potentially very weak, with just having a very short build, having no map control, PurpleSquig having a power income of plus 94, and yeah, just all that. But PurpleSquig did go for definitely a very, very expensive tier 1 build, and I think that's part of what allowed Dark Heretic back into this game. And Dark Heretic didn't really respond that hard in tier 2. He really didn't get much out of tier 2. So he kind of just kept his tier 1 army without really getting much in tier 2, and that may have been a mistake. Anyway, Plague Champion now does have the Plague Fist. He's going down very, very quickly, but he's using a bunch of abilities and knocks over a bunch of stuff. He used that is the Aura of Decay ability. Really? Yeah, Aura of Decay ability. We do also have some Touch of Nurgle on the Chosen Plague Marine, so if they ever lose a model, they will explode and do some substantial damage. They might even spawn some zombie Seer Council, but so far none of the Chosen Plague Marine models have gone down. Finally, one goes down, and they're reinforcing right off the Chaos Shrine of Nurgle, so this is, well, it's definitely some very Nurgle-oriented play, and it's actually doing pretty well. And you know what? These Plague Marines, as much as I said, like, I thought they were going to be bad, or was kind of like really questioning it, they're doing well enough, and they're doing well enough in part because they're level 4. How did they get to level 4? How did that even happen? And PurpleSquig actually concedes. I mean, it's a triple cap against him. I mean, the Plague Marines are definitely tough, and they were also getting healed by this shrine. So Dark Heretic takes it. Pretty interesting play, showing us what the Plague Champion is capable of. Even if it's not a whole lot, there is something. All right. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.